You're listening to Cool Sentences, a fiction podcast recorded in Phuket, Thailand. Well, welcome to episode 4 of the Tales of Johnny Wiseley, and with me in let's just say the studio of the mind is Johnny Wiseley himself. Hey, Johnny.
Hello, Vlado.
I was wondering, how are you keeping up?
Why do you ask?
Well, a lot's happened.
True, Vlado. Sad about Martha.
Yes. And now your Uncle Theodore, is he still concerned about the invasion?
As we all should. But in today's episode, something that everyone should feel at least once in their lifetime is what I want to talk about.
You mean the pleasure of slicing an alien from the planet Vortex in half with a lightsaber?
Not quite. I mean love, Vlado. True, magnificent love. Have you ever felt it?
Well, often it does come at the most unlikely of times, doesn't it?
Indeed. For me, it happened on the Roseshire ferry on the way to Roseminster. So you'll have a listen, won't you?
Of course I will.
You're listening to Cool Sentences, a fiction podcast recorded in Phuket, Thailand.
Johnny Wiseley. Ship of Fools by Nyberg. My job on that fateful afternoon in spring was simple. I had to convince the man who stole my wife to join the resistance. Now, of course, you're thinking, resistance to what? And if you've been listening over the past few sessions, you'd know. But if you haven't been listening, all I can tell you is to hit the Spotify follow button and catch up. Now, serious business. My Uncle Theodore was convinced the aliens were coming, and he suggested my ex-best friend Bill Hedges, the famous celebrity, could help us with recruitment. So on a sunny afternoon, in contrast to the afternoons Hitler and Napoleon experienced while trying to take on the Russians in winter, or the wet monsoons Kublai Khan faced when he aborted his invasion of Japan, my trip across the channel on the Roseshire ferry was a very pleasant afternoon indeed. The ocean was a glistening blue. Seagulls flew overhead, and as I sat on the top deck in the salty air reading my newspaper, I saw a group of happy children skipping along the upper deck, holding balloons of red, blue, and orange. Across from me, a man sat reading his paper, and I noticed he was still wearing a winter trench coat. I wondered if he realized his top hat would blow away into the sea. We exchanged polite glances, then went back to reading our papers. I imagine the Roseville ferry is like any other ferry, really, whether you travel from the south to the North Island in New Zealand, or around Cape Cod, or even along the British Columbian coast. They're all the same, really. Just a large white box, except of course on the top deck there are no walls, just the vessel's blue metal safety railing and the empty sea and sky beyond. After about an hour, we approached the town of Roseminster and its lush green forests that blanket the shoreline. The voyage was almost over, and I could see the lineup of parked cars waiting to board the return trip back to Roseville. At the edge of the forest, the coastline was rugged and rocky, and it was there I saw a sight worth fighting for. You see, standing all alone on one of the protruding jagged rocks was a rosy-looking woman in a flowery dress, sort of a hippie woman in earth tones, if you know what I mean. Incredibly, this woman was surrounded by dozens upon dozens of transparent floating orbs that made her presence seem strange, otherworldly, and yet even more beautiful. She was standing there in a slight breeze with her bubble mixture in one hand, while blowing translucent bubbles through a plastic wand that she had in the other. The bubbles, like my love life really, floated hesitantly over the rocks before bursting above the surf lapping the waves below. I couldn't take my eyes off of her. And when the biggest, most improbable bubble of all captured the sun's afternoon light and turned into a multicolored beach ball, suddenly I remembered the children on the deck with their colorful balloons. Oh my, I said to myself, I'd forgotten Emma's birthday. I'd been so fixated on Uncle Theodore and the invasion and meeting Bill that my favorite niece's birthday had slipped my mind. Now, I don't believe in omens as a general rule, but I thought to myself that this lovely bubble lady was probably a good omen. Just then, the man in the black trench coat and inexpensive top hat folded his newspaper, and we exchanged glances. His dark eyes had an intense, haunted look about them, as if he wanted to say hello, but was too shy. You know, there are people like that, and we often mistake them for snobs. Sad, really. But then I looked again and realized he was really staring. Shy or not, it didn't matter. It was better I stretched my legs. I'll just do a walk around the middle deck before the boat docks, I told myself. I started toward the stern of the boat, away from the line of foot passengers waiting to depart. Behind me, the man seemed to have the same idea. 20 paces behind. I quickened my pace, then veered to the railing on the starboard side. The man in the top hat was following my every move. Stationed on the deck was an upside-down life raft. I quickly bowed down, hid next to it, and waited. From my crouching position, the man's top hat passed by. Why on earth would a man who didn't say hello follow me to the wrong side of the boat? I wondered. I let a few minutes pass, then quickly strode back to the crowded departure area. I had planted myself between the children. Red, blue and orange balloons bounced in front of my face. Then suddenly, a black glove pushed the red balloon away, and I was standing face to face with the man with the darkest eyes I'd ever seen. With the wave of his hand, everything just stopped. Like that old freeze-frame trick they use in the telly. It was quite something. The children were frozen mid-laughter. The adults were frozen mid-gesture holding their coffee cups. And even the seagulls seemed to be glued to the afternoon air. In fact, the only things capable of movement were the man in the inexpensive top hat and myself. But then I saw her, the hippie-bubble lady. She walked ever so confidently through the crowd of passenger statues, marching directly to the man I shall always remember as Mr. Darkeyes. "It's over," she told him. And with that, his eyes seemed to lighten to a bright shade of yellow. "You mean no invasion?" he said. She whispered something in his ears. Then, for some strange reason, she smiled at me. "Mr. Wiseley, your species' rose-growing efforts have averted the calamity of your own extinction." "Congratulations," she said. Mr. Darkeyes seemed to be relieved. He took off his top hat and curtsied. He told me, "Now that Earth has an abundance of rose gardens, the aliens who are allergic to roses would never invade." "Well, who are you?" I asked them. The hippie-bubble lady had probably the most soothing voice I'd ever heard. She told me to forget all things alien and to go about my life as if nothing happened. And with that, suddenly the sounds of the ferry and its passengers and cries of the seagulls filled my ears, and they, whoever they were gone. I was alone in the crowd, possessed of a secret knowledge that would never be revealed. I imagine Einstein, or even your local musician, might feel the same way about possessing secret knowledge and all that. Anyway, I realized that sunny afternoon that we all make sacrifices, really, in the pursuit of a better future. And hopefully these sacrifices will allow us to enjoy the things that really matter. Like, for example, the very thing I wanted to do but had forgotten in all the commotion of saving the planet. Emma's birthday. Thankfully, there's still time. Okay, I'm Johnny Wiseley. Bye for now.
You're listening to Cool Sentences, a fiction podcast with narration and music by John Bell, and words and music by Derek Nyberg, and of course, Johnny Wiseley, the fictional character who pops up in my brain every once in a while. I guess the next time I talk to Johnny, I'll have to ask him about the hippie-bubble lady. Okay, see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to click on the follow button. I'm Vlad Forgac. Bye for now.